Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of Tuesday Talks and Tips. Today, we have once again somebody who's familiar to our regulars. We have District 62 Lead Pathways Guide, Lori Haynes. Her session today will be about evaluations, but it will be on a different, how do you call it? Not a different spin, but a different focus. And rather than me trying to do a piss poor job of introducing what she will be doing, I would like to bring her right up. Let us all welcome Lori Haynes.
Thank you. Let me get my screen going here. Do you guys see the slide, Tuesday Talks and Tips?
Yes, we do.
All right, just making sure. Today the title is Harness the Power of Evaluation. And I think maybe the reason it's called that is because once we understand about evaluations and pathways, how they're put together, how best to use them, where to find them, and some FAQs and tips, we'll be able to really harness the power of it and use them to their full ability, and to help our club mates also understand both evaluations and that evaluation and feedback project better. Here's our agenda for tonight. We'll look at the pathways evaluation forms. Where are the evaluation forms? The evaluation and feedback project, there's still a little confusion on that. Storing evaluations in Basecamp, and then FAQs and best practices. Evaluations and pathways. Well, I hope all of you have seen a pathways evaluation form. Raise your hand if you have. Everybody seen a form? All right, that's good. And of course, this is the top part of the form that has which speech it's for. And it's always important to take a look at the purpose statement and notes for the evaluator. Although some of the evaluation form is very similar throughout the projects, this will always be specifically for the particular project that the form is for. So it's important to take a look at that if you're evaluating someone. Here's a different one from the Know Your Sense of Humor, and that's a required project for engaging humor in level 2, and for the rest of us, it's an elective in level 3. So it, of course, has a different purpose statement and notes. Then the bottom of that page is the same for the forms. A box for you excelled at, you may work on, and to challenge yourself. Now, this was something new for us to talk about challenging yourself. We didn't really have that in the evaluations. And that's been a lot of fun to discover what sorts of things would we put in there. Is it just more stuff to work on, or is it something extra special that you do want to challenge them? If I'm evaluating somebody who is doing their icebreaker, I always put in the challenge yourself box to sign up for another speech right away, just to keep going and keep making progress. Then, of course, the second page is we have the different categories and the ratings. And this is very similar throughout all the projects, sometimes just 1 or 2 or maybe 3 of the items differ, and you get to rate them on a scale. We might be tempted, because we're so nice Toastmasters, to just give everybody 5 or 4, right? Because we want to be nice. But are we really helping the speaker if we don't give them some things to work on, some specifics that they can do to help make their speaking better? When they came out with this, they told us guides that if someone did a really good job and met their objectives, that's a 3. That's a 3. That means they're really solid and met the objectives. And then maybe you might have some go up to 4 sometimes. But 3 is a good score, not a bad score. You might be giving people 1s or 2s. If you are going to do a lower score, notice there's a comments box. Make sure you put something, good that they did in that area, as well as maybe something to improve on, so they understand why they got that score. One thing I love about this page, to me, you can actually give them more feedback because you've got the boxes on the front, but then you've got these boxes on the second page where you can give comments about all these categories. And then the boxes on the front, you can say for other additional comments. So I really like that. Also, if you're evaluating someone who's doing their icebreaker and you think you just want to go kind of easy on them, it's their first speech, you don't have to fill out the second page at all. Just do the first one and then wait until later speeches to fill out this second page. And there is a criteria, so it's less subjective as it was under the traditional education program. Hopefully we're all almost calibrated, not quite calibrated, but at least evaluating very similarly. Now here's an evaluation form, the second part, that's very different, and that's the one for the understanding vocal variety, because it's specifically looking at different aspects of your vocal delivery. Sometimes I will, because I have problems with volume is one of my big problems, and sometimes other parts of vocal variety. Sometimes I will print this page out in addition to whatever the evaluation form for whatever project I'm doing and give this to someone else, not my evaluator because they're busy doing the rest of the evaluation, but I'll give it to someone else so I can see, am I making good progress on this? So this form is a fun one. Any questions on the basics of the form? I bet you guys are all experts, but I thought I'd review it anyway. Any questions on that? You can put it in the chat or unmute yourself.
Lori, I believe I've said this in another episode, and I'm not sure if you were there. You might have been there. There are a couple of forms that have a different sequence of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think that is the 360 form. So just let people know that the 360 form has I think it's going up. So from left, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Whereas like when you showed, it is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you're not really looking at the description, you're just kind of knowing where they are, then you might end up marking the total opposite of what you want to be marking.
Right, and that form is not an evaluation form, a speech evaluation form. It's one of the resources in some of the projects to evaluate leadership. But that's good to know. I'm surprised that they push it around because I'm sure that is confusing to people.
Yep.
All right, now we'll look at where are the evaluation forms. We have to get our magnifying glass out to find them. Well, they're in the project, right? So if you're in your path, you can either go to your path here under the transcript or click on the education transcript, access my path, find your path and click, on open curriculum for your path, and then open up your project. Now this screenshot I'm showing is a new screenshot that shows what a brand new member sees when they open their path now. Because before they could only access the Icebreaker project and they couldn't get into the other two until they completed that Icebreaker project. But now with the upgrade that they did last week, they're able to open up any project, not just in this level, but anywhere at any time. So I did put in a nice new screenshot for you. So we're going to open up the project. We'll click activate. It'll turn to launch. You click launch. And if you haven't been in Pathways for a while, the project's now launched in a separate new tab, which is nice. You don't have to resize it. You use the right and left arrows to go through the project. And if you have and you're rushing in to grab your evaluation form, you can use this bottom jump menu, click on that arrow, and this pops up. And the evaluation form is always in the Your Evaluation section. So we'll go to that now. And here's the evaluation resource. They call them resources in Pathways. And there's also other materials here. This is where you can print your project if you want to print out the entire project. And different projects have different resources in there. This is the Icebreaker. It has a nice speech outline worksheet. So you can get your evaluation form right from here to print out to bring to the meeting. That's one place you can get it. Where's our next place? Where are the evaluation forms? Well, they're in the speech evaluations tile. Here's our Basecamp homepage, and there's the blue tiles here. It's kind of in the center when you have it open. This last speech on the right is the speech evaluations tile. If you click that, this is what the top part of the page shows. It has some nice FAQs about evaluations here that you can take a look at. Notice up here, I've got a little box around this section where it says review the how to evaluate tutorial. Make sure that all of your new members watch that. It talks about the evaluation form. It talks about how to do evaluations. It even plays a little bit of a speech, and you'll laugh because they have the speaker do poorly. And then it opens up an evaluation form. You get to do an evaluation of that little bit of a speech. And then the narrator does an evaluation. It's a nice comparison. And it's really a great tool for new members. And even seasoned members might like to see that as well. So make sure you're referring your new members to watch that. Now you can kind of see down below, peeking out, or some of the evaluation forms. You have to scroll down to see the bottom part of this section. And there is every single evaluation form for all of the projects and pathways. They're listed alphabetically. They even have the ones for the mentoring project. The Distinguished Toastmaster project one is here. They even added the new engaging humor ones. It took them a couple of weeks after the path launched, but everything is here. And it's nice that it's here. You're rushing late for a meeting. It's faster to come here and find your project evaluation form and print it from here, I think, anyway. And maybe you're helping maybe you have a mentor and it's their icebreaker and you think, uh-oh, they might forget their form. You can come here and print it out for them really quick. Or if they're doing another project, if your buddy can't get to a printer. Or maybe you're evaluating somebody on a project you're not familiar with. You can come here and take a look at the form ahead of time to prepare yourself and get a little bit of information about the project if you'd like. So it's really nice that they have that here. Now there is a generic evaluation resource. It's not tied to any particular project, but we, as you know, we give speeches sometimes. Maybe it's an educational speech that we put together ourselves, or we're giving a speech about something that's not part of a project. There's an evaluation form for that, which is nice. Now here are the 3 forms for the evaluation and feedback project. And we'll talk about that project in a minute, but it has the evaluation forms for the 3 items in that project that you have to do right here. But that's a little confusing because if you look around, there's no 1 or 2 on anything else. It might make you think this is the only speech or the only project that has multiple speeches, but that's not the case. For example, I just finished the Deliver Social Speeches, and there's 2 speeches in that. But both of the evaluation forms for each of those speeches are within that. It's just one file. They broke this out, but there are other projects that have multiple speeches in there. I wanted to make sure to point that out for you. So you can get all of the evaluation forms right here on the speech evaluations tile. Well, guess what? We can find the evaluation forms somewhere else. You can search for them in Basecamp. If you didn't know you can search in Basecamp, there's a search bar in the upper right corner of Basecamp, and you can start typing a project name. And here we see I started typing Icebreaker, and there's the evaluation resource, plus it's in other languages. Now, sometimes it'll work for you to click here. sometimes it seems to be temperamental, and just press enter. And then when you press enter, well, here's a close-up view so you can see it. When you press enter, you'll see some results. And sometimes it goes over more than one page, so you have to click on that bottom and where it says more to find what you're looking for. And once you click it, you'll have to launch it, and there's the form. Now, you might not use the search very often because it's in your project and it's in the speech evaluations tile. But one instance where it could be helpful, if you're in a club with members that speak multiple language, such as in Canada, they have clubs where it's both French and English. And maybe your path is in English, but you're evaluating somebody who's speaking in French. This would be a good place to find that French evaluation form if you wanted to, just as an example. All right, there's another place where you can find evaluation forms. Easy Speak and Free Toast Host now have the evaluation forms on there. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on these because we're going to put together a separate webinar where we cover these in depth. Carol McCullough is going to speak on Easy Speak, and I'm going to talk about Free Toast Host websites. If you use these websites, you may already know where the evaluation forms are on those. So, wow, lots of places to find the evaluation forms. So I think that's cool. That way, no matter where we are, we can get to them fast. If we're evaluating someone that has a project we don't have, we can still find it. We can help our teammates, our club mates. Lots of options with the finding the evaluation forms. Any questions on that part?
Not a question, Lori, just a comment that one of those places I didn't realize had been added. You know, the blue tile with the speech evaluations.
Oh, yeah?
That hadn't been, well, I don't bother to look there and in Basecamp anymore because I use Free Toast Host. But the last time I looked, that wasn't there. So that's another addition that's, you know, there's constant progress. And that's really handy. Just like you said, it's probably faster to get it from there than to
Yeah.
have to go into a project and scroll and do all of that. So
Yeah,
thanks. Yeah.
oh, sure, that tile's been there from the beginning. It's not
I guess I haven't really been looking, huh?
you're so busy doing everything else, right?
3 a.m.
But it's nice that they've kept that up to date and added the others as they come in. So that is really nice. All right, now we'll look at the evaluation and feedback project. And for your new members, this is the first time they're evaluating. So this is an important project. And this is level 1, and that evaluation and feedback project is right here. Because they've opened up the projects now, your new member might do this first. Now, we might recommend to them they start with the Icebreaker, and many probably will, but they could do this project first of all if they wanted to now. So there's 3 steps. There's 3 things that you have to do in this project, and there's still some confusion on this, the fact that there are 3 different things. So first, you give a brand new speech about anything. Any topic you want to do. Then you redo that speech you just gave using the feedback that you received from it. And then the final task in this project is to do a speech evaluation. And new to Pathways is you're evaluated on that evaluation. So that's something we didn't do before in the traditional program. But I think it's nice. That way they get some feedback on their first evaluation. We give feedback for other stuff, so why not evaluation? We've been having fun with that in my clubs. So it's 2 speeches and a speech evaluation. 3 tasks to complete in that. Now, there's some things to keep in mind as you're going through this project. Now, because of how the project is described, it's a little confusing, and some people think they're supposed to repeat the icebreaker. And I've heard that, and I noticed that when I read it. But the icebreaker is a separate speech. And for this project, they do a different speech and then repeat that speech. You don't have to repeat the second speech in the project if you don't want to. You could just do 2 new speeches for it if you wanted to. Now, Toastmasters recommend you redo the first speech you did for this project, because then you get the experience of changing that speech based on feedback, and your club members get the experience of hearing how making some changes really improves a speech. This is probably one of the most favorite projects that a lot of Toastmasters like about Pathways, because often we just give a speech and then we rush on for the next speech. Remember, there are 3 evaluation forms for this project. There's one for the first speech, one for the second speech, and one for the evaluation. It's we're not used to bringing an evaluation form when we're the evaluator. Sometimes what I'll do if it's my mentee is I'll go ahead and I'll bring that form because I might forget. If I'm Toastmaster, I might send that person an email if I know that it's their first evaluation and say, hey, don't forget to bring the evaluation form. In fact, I did that today. I'm general evaluator tomorrow, and we have someone doing their first evaluation. Because you can get all those evaluations in the speech evaluation tiles, what some clubs do is they print out some of those evaluations in level 1 and have them on hand. So you have that option as well. Doing the speech evaluation in this project can be done at any point. If they're really scared about doing that speech evaluation, they can wait and do a couple more speeches if they're not comfortable with it. Or they could do it first off if they really wanted to. Of course, they can't complete or have that level 1 completed until they do the speech evaluation. But they can still do it at their own pace. It's recommended but not required that you have the same evaluator for both of those speeches. Then that way that person can say, now when you gave this speech before, you did yada da da da. And this time you made a change and wow, it's better. Bring the completed evaluation form from that first speech for the evaluator of the second speech. Even if it's the same person, because I might have forgotten, particularly if you're not redoing the speech the next meeting, excuse me. Now, doing the speech evaluation in this project is evaluated. Like we said, bring the form. And then you want to make sure that the club has someone do an evaluation of that new evaluator of the meeting. In my clubs, we slot it in. If your club, it's just the schedule's too tight, you can't get someone in. Some clubs have the general evaluator give some comments on it and fill out the form. That way we want to make sure that first time evaluator is getting some feedback. All right, we went through a lot with that project. Any questions or comments on that?
Hi, Lori. Yes, this is LaVersa. I do have a question. On
Yes.
the third, I guess the evaluation, is that member evaluating someone else?
Yes, they're
as the speech evaluator?
Yes, they're
Okay.
evaluating a speech. It's their first time evaluating someone, being a speech evaluator, and they're being evaluated on that first evaluation, so they get some feedback too.
Okay. Thank you.
Are you welcome? Excuse me. Anything else?
Lori, just a point for clarification. It's if they're working on their first path, then yes, it would be their first time evaluating if they're a new member. But if they're somebody who's been around the block several times, then it wouldn't be their first time to evaluate, but they would still be required to do that project. And I'm sure you know that's one of the issues with some of the experienced folks where they say, why do we have to be evaluated on that? We've been doing evaluations since forever. But as you said, even experienced Toastmasters can always benefit from being
All right.
evaluated on how they evaluate.
Right. Right. Even experienced Toastmasters would do that evaluation and get evaluated because that's one of the requirements of that project.
But another point I just want to throw out there is that using the pathways evaluations forms is different for everyone that's gotten involved in pathways now. So getting an evaluation on how well you evaluated using the pathways forms, I think, is a good level set for everyone at this point in the program.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Storing evaluations. Now, the most important part to remember about this, storing evaluations in Basecamp is not required.
Yay.
Now, you can if you want. I at first did not, but I've got so many papers now, I'm thinking maybe I should scan them and put it in there so I can keep track of everything. It's not required, but they set it up so that you can upload evaluations or any files into your Basecamp profile. We'll go through how to do that. This is our Basecamp homepage. And the three I've got to blow up here of the 5 tiles. You can get to the ePortfolio to upload evaluations or any file by clicking any of these 3 tiles. Now, why does it work with any of the 3 tiles? Well, if you click the transcript file, see this menu here? There's ePortfolio. If you click the feedback tile, look, there's ePortfolio. This menu stays the same for those 3 tiles. If you click my badges tile, look, there's ePortfolio. So that's why it doesn't matter which one of those 3 tiles you click, you just got to get to ePortfolio. And when you click there, you can go to see your badges if you want to look at your badges to see if anyone's given you any badges or to see your learning badges. And click on Document if you want to store some new documents or look at the documents you've already put there. They have preset some levels, some folders here, and you can't change the names of the folders. You can't add any folders. They have 6 folders, one for every level, and then a general My Documents file. And you can see I have a file here under My Documents where it says Files 1. Everything else it looks like is empty right now. If you want something in level 1, click on the level 1 and then click on the Add File. You can either drag and drop or click the Select a File button and navigate on your computer wherever the file is stored. Then click Add. Or if you realize you selected the wrong file, click Cancel and try again. So we see I've got a file up here. I click Add, and now it's in my level 1 folder. Now a note on naming them. It's helpful to be very specific in naming them, particularly if you're working in different paths. So we see here, I have my name, I guess in case I forget my name. I don't know why I put my name here. So visionary communication, evaluation, feedback, speech 2. So that tells me exactly which speech that is, and it's here in my level 1 folder. And you can open it from here, this down drop on the right, or if you delete it, you can also open it by clicking on the file name. So you don't have to do this to open it, but if you decide, oh, that's the wrong file, or I don't want that here anymore, you can delete that file. Well, now if we go back, we see that I have a file in level 1. And you can keep adding files. They did put a lot of space here for us to store stuff, but there's not enough space to be storing videos. If you take videos of your speeches, you probably want to upload them somewhere in the cloud or YouTube, and then maybe have a sheet with the links or something if you wanted easy access. It's important to know that only you have access to the files here. No one else can look at your files. You're not even the Basecamp managers. And again, it's not required, but it's a nice option if you want to keep yourself organized. Any question on storing the evaluations or files in Basecamp Manager. I'm looking, there's a check. All right, we have a question from Gwen that there's a portion, there's a spot where it says this speech should not be a report on the content of any Pathways project. We have a new member that keeps doing this. How would you respond? All right, what are your suggestions, guys? Michelle, I think I hear you formulating an idea.
Well, I was opening my mouth to say something, but it was going to be a bit snarky, so I closed my mouth again. It was going to be snarky towards the members of the club, and in terms of maybe modeling or showing. Well, I guess I'll say it. I already started speaking. So the new members will tend to see what others in the club are doing. So rather than telling, I would rather show how the evaluations are being done. Or if it's really very pronounced that this new member is focusing on the things which are like, is insisting that you were supposed to say this, blah, 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 then that's the role of the general evaluator. Remember, nothing has changed in terms of the role of the general evaluator. I would say the general evaluator could make certain suggestions, or the mentor of this new member during their private or personal mentoring sessions could make those suggestions. But I still think that modeling the right evaluation is so much better than telling this new member what to do or what not to do.
Yeah, and Trish has a comment here, and I was thinking along the same line she was, that as part of her evaluation, she would call this out, and for improvement, suggest I talk more about how the project impacted them, what they learned. That would be a good thing to put in the challenge section, maybe. Where you're evaluating the speech and say, now your challenge is next time take it and give us more in depth about your experience in it, or however you were going to say. Yeah, that's a good way. And I like your suggestion too of the general evaluator. If the evaluator doesn't call it out, then the general evaluator could. Anything else to add on that, Trish? Add to that? Anyone else have any suggestions or feedback on this question? Thanks for the question. I like it. All right. So now I've got some FAQs and best practices. All right, this is quiz time. You guys can take yourself off mute. You ready to answer the quiz? What do we think? Who is responsible for bringing the evaluation form to the meeting?
A speaker.
The speaker. Any other guesses?
The evaluator.
The evaluator. Any other guesses?
Right. If you're a good, or if you're a really proactive Toastmaster, you would also. Oh, this is like who must be responsible. Okay.
Who's responsible for it? Others could. This is true. I'll cover that in some of the best practices. So the speaker is responsible for it. We'll cover some best practices around there too. Does the evaluation have to be filled out on a computer, or what do you think? Yes or no?
No.
No.
You can write it out on the form and give it back to the speaker, or you could scan it and email it to the speaker. Some people do that. If you open up the file and start typing in it though, and then save it, the information is not going to be saved in the file, and then you're going to be upset because your beautiful evaluation will get more.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So you need to, if you're gonna, it's okay to type it up, but you need to open up the file, save it on your laptop or computer or whatever you're doing, and only then open it up again and start typing and save it. But
yes.
It's required that you do it online. I've heard that there's clubs where they bring their laptop in and everybody's typing away their evaluations. Some people do it. I haven't yet. What else do we have here? Do evaluations have to be uploaded and stored in Basecamp?
No.
No.
Right, we talked about that. No, you can if you want. It's a nice handy place there. Keep in mind that if you put files there and then you don't renew, you won't have access to those files anymore. So you might want to make sure they're in another place as well. All right, another one. Should I just give speakers ratings of 4 or 5? We're supposed to be nice in Toastmasters. What do you think?
Nope.
And if you want people to learn.
That's right.
Mhm.
It's very good and means the speaker met the objectives. But add comments and suggestions. For sure, if giving a lower score, and I like to do it all the time because you've just got more room to write feedback for people. Do I have to give ratings for a new member giving an icebreaker speech?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No?
You can choose to only fill out the first page of the evaluation for a new member giving the icebreaker speech, or maybe just give 1 or 2 ratings. You know, if you kind of feel like, the person, you just need to be extra gentle with them at first. Maybe you know the person and you just feel like it, or you just have this feeling, it's okay. And that's even approved by Toastmasters. I'm not making it up. That's what they told us when we were guides. But it's up to you. Then that's kind of a hard one because maybe they are a lot of 2s at first. You don't want to discourage them, or they might think, wow, I have to improve all this. I can't do it. So maybe just give 1 or 2 ratings. Give a couple good ones and a couple, an improvement one, and say, well, you're new, just start here and keep on going. Can someone who's still working in the manuals evaluate a pathway speech and vice versa?
Yep.
That's right. Yes, they can. And it doesn't matter because they're evaluating the speech. They're not evaluating the education program. It doesn't matter if they know.
And that's where the evaluation resource is so helpful, because they have a guide. They can look at the criteria and, they're not totally in the dark.
Right, right. At my evening club, they're having a lot of fun. We've got a couple of us that are still working through the manuals. And they've been having fun seeing what types of speeches that we did for the manuals. Excuse me. Now, this kind of goes back to what Michelle brought up earlier. Member has evaluated many times before. Do they still have to do an evaluation for the evaluation and feedback project?
Yep.
That's right. And if it's Trish, she has to do 2. How about that? Yes. Even experienced Toastmasters. We're never too old to learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to do the evaluation first before doing other projects?
Nope.
No, not even before the update last week. No, you can do that evaluation at any time. It might be better to earlier. Now, if you have someone who's just really, really nervous about doing that evaluation, you could pair up with them. You could say, okay, here's the form. You write in the form. I'll write in the form. I'll do the evaluation. We'll talk about it a little bit after. What did you see? So they can focus on it and get an idea of how an evaluation could go. So they could do that if they wanted to, just to get to that point where they're comfortable with it. But eventually, I always tell them, it's not a comfortable thing often doing evaluations, right? But we're just there to help each other and do our best. And just like you improve the more speeches you do, you improve evaluating the more evaluations you do. All right, some best practices. I guess I should ask, any questions? I didn't have a question. No question slide. All right, since all level 1 projects are the same, you could keep copies of level 1 evaluation forms handy for new members. A lot of clubs are doing this, either all of the projects in level 1, or some are doing the icebreaker, at least that. Another one I recommend is that evaluation form number 3, where you're evaluating the evaluator, because that one is often forgotten. But you could go whole hog and have every project evaluation form there if you've got a nice big cabinet to store them in, right? So mentors, if you're a mentor, you could bring a copy and evaluation in case the member forgets. Or sometimes what I like to do is I'll also fill out an evaluation form for someone, and then they get some extra feedback. And that's more room than doing it on those little slips on the ballot form, right? Where you only have room to do a couple, 3 sentences. Anyone can print out a project evaluation and bring it to a meeting. We have, and this is where I got this tip, have people designated as people who can print. We have one of my clubs, we have 2 people, and they've said if anyone needs an evaluation form printed, because maybe someone doesn't have a printer at home, or the printer breaks down, or you run out of ink, then we just have to send one of those people the form, try to give them plenty of notice, and they've said they'll print it out and bring it for us. So that's a nice service that they offer for us. If you're an evaluator, you can pull up the evaluation to prepare before the meeting. If it's not a project you have in your path, you can pull it up in that speech evaluation style. You can print out your evaluations ahead of time. You know what projects you're doing. You could print out all of level 1, level 2, your required projects, and have them all together, and then you don't have to worry about forgetting. You could even keep them in your trunk so that they're there with you when you get to the meeting. Make sure that members watch that How to Evaluate tutorial. That's that one I showed you in the speech evaluation style. Make sure, particularly your new members, before they're evaluating that first time. Any questions? I don't see anything in the chat yet. You can put it in the chat or unmute yourself. Or maybe you have some best practices on evaluations you'd like to share as well.
Lori, I wanted to mention that I keep on thinking about the environment and all the ink and all the printing. One of the things that I think most of my clubs do, well, partly because we have online attendance, is to save PDFs of all the evaluations, and like you said, careful about the naming. So we will have like pathways, and then short EV, and then whatever the project that's being evaluated. So during the meeting, we can just send that. Sometimes the evaluator doesn't show up, so then somebody else has to evaluate. We can simply email that because it is either in our phone, or it's very easy because you don't have to print it. It's a PDF. That
Right.
might be an option for some people.
Right, right, and that's why it's nice that they're online on the free Toast Host and Easy Speak too. It's another place. And Trish has something she does at her club. They keep some copies of the generic evaluation form, so that way that could be used, and that really could be used for any project. It may be just a little different. It won't have the project description or notes to the evaluator for a particular project, but hopefully the evaluator could talk to the member to get an idea of what the project is if they wanted to. So that's a good tip as well. And that is my last information slide. I have resources that I put together. I'll put it in the chat. You can email me with any questions at pathways@62toast.com. I'm going to stop the share and turn it over to our fabulous Toastmaster, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lori. And everyone, you can go ahead and unmute yourselves, and let's give Lori a really big round of applause. Please unmute yourself. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
I always love being not moderating, but just being the Zoom host for this, because I constantly learn. And yeah, it was a kind of humbling admission that I didn't realize that speech evaluations were up there on the blue tiles. But hey, it's great. Thank you, Lori, for mentioning that. And I always like the way that you pace yourself. It's so easy to follow you. So those slides, in addition to the video, which we will be posting as usual, I would appreciate it if you could share your slides on the Facebook group, the Pathways Discussion Forum, on the file section. That would be great. I think people would find that very helpful.
All right.
So if anybody has any questions or comments or concerns, go ahead and unmute yourself. I see that we have Laversa. Welcome, Laversa. There's Gwen, there's Bandra, and Carl. It's the first time, I believe it's your first time to attend. So, yes, do you have any questions, comments, or concerns?
No questions, comments, concern, just busy schedules.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's great. Well, while people might be thinking, sometimes it takes time to let information filter in, I would like to briefly promote or mention what we're having next week. I'm sure everyone or almost everyone is aware that there have been some updates to Basecamp. So next week, that will be episode 13, same time, same Zoom link. September 24, we will have Basecamp updates, impact, implications, and insights. And we will have George Marshall, who is the Chief Pathways Guide of District 57, the first district to pilot Pathways. We will have Carol McCulloch, who is the District 73 Pathways Coordinator. And we have a relatively new Toastmaster, Roger Fung, who was one of the first Toastmasters to earn his DTM in Pathways. So these three will be discussing Basecamp updates, impact, implications, and insights. Again, that will be 7 to 8 p.m. Pacific time, Tuesday, September 24th. Okay, so has anybody had the time to think up of any question, comment, suggestion, challenge, anything related to our topic this evening?
Or maybe you just want to share an experience of Pathways that you're having, or how your club members are reacting to it being wide open.
I have just a general question for the group. Are you having any challenges getting people to fill out the third page or the second or third page, depending on which one you like to use? When our club first started Pathways, everybody filled out the first page, but nobody was going through and filling out the scoring pages. That's not the case anymore. We've gotten over that, but I just wondered if anybody was still stuck.
Actually, for me, that was a bit of a revelation that some clubs don't even fill out that second page, because I guess we always took it for granted that you filled out the first page and then you filled out the second page.
Yeah.
Sometimes we didn't put comments,
Mm-hmm.
but we always did the numbers. So it was interesting that, hey, you mean it's okay not to, it just feels like it's not complete if you don't.
Right. I agree. It's not okay to not fill out the second page.
Right. I would, however, sometimes say, for certain items, I really cannot say anything on this, like for example, because again we have online clubs, so if the video or the audio was really poor, then I would just pass on the vocal variety, because I mean, it could have been on my end, not the speaker, but generally we would fill out the form. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, if we have no questions, comments, or concerns, Lori, do you have any questions or anything, any final words that you would like to impart to us tonight?
Evaluate as often as you can. That's my advice.
That's yep. Sorry, go ahead.
Have fun with it. Use the form. The more I use the form, the more I like it. I have to say that with the pathways forms.
Yes, I agree. Use it or lose it. I have realized I have evaluated. I've been a Toastmaster since '96, but there are times I realize if I haven't been evaluating often, I suddenly am at a loss for words, and I find myself almost defaulting into a generic "you did well," and then I stop and say, no, this is not right, this is not fair, let me think on it, I will get back to you with more details. Because yeah, if you don't practice it, if you're not constantly honing your evaluation ear, then it'll kind of go it'll go limp. Yeah, that's right. Okay, well, Trish, any message, any final words before we adjourn the meeting or the episode?
Well, my mantra is comes from Prez Vasiliev. If you want to become a better speaker, become a better evaluator. So.
Yes, and actually, he is one of my favorite world champions of public speaking. I think he said how many times he did the change by a tire speech. We're like, I really love when he went the click, 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 click. He must have practiced that sound, and yeah, he's a great speaker and he's a great evaluator. I think he did. I have to find that, but he did something. I think it was a talk or a seminar or something where he explained his process of evaluating. Maybe we should invite him, huh? Stretchy. Okay. Well, if there are no comments, questions, challenges, then it is 6 minutes to the bottom of the hour. So we can all get off a little bit early tonight. Remember again that next meeting we are having a kind of a panel discussion, not quite, it's more of a conversation of talking about the Basecamp updates. And please, Lori, Trish, please be there, because George, Marshall, Carol McCulloch, and Roger Fung will sort of take a lead on certain topics, but it would be wonderful to have people with your experience there. So at this point, I will close the recording, and